Hey there, space cowboys and cowgirls. So glad to have you with us on Florida's Fourth Estate this week. We've got a special guest. My name's Matt Austin.
And I'm Ginger Gadsden. Am I your special guest? Oh
No,
no, I see who it is.
you
I
know who
see
my
who it
special
is.
guest is.
It's our space guy.
That's right. This is Eric
I,
Von
I'm to,
Aiken.
I'm totally honored, guys, that you think I'm a special guest. You could have had anybody on your show that knows a lot more about space than I do.
Oh,
Well, okay, those guys are going up into space soon and they're in quarantine, so they can't
yep.
they're Doug and Bob.
They're
So
not
they're unavailable right
contractually
now.
obligated to hang out with us as well. So Eric Von Aiken, he's been covering space for decades. We've covered it together out there on the launch and landing facility, and he knows a ton about space. We just had a big launch that was supposed to go off yesterday. We had all the pomp and circumstance. It didn't end
Oh
up
my God.
happening. So we figured we would sort of give you a little primer for Saturday.
Yes.
We try to send this thing up again, hopefully it happens. So
Oh my
we'll see
gosh.
how it goes.
So, Eric, I want your impression of how things went yesterday because it everything went off except the rocket. And if they had waited 5 more minutes, the weather cleared up, and we were all like, but that's not how this works.
Eh, eh, No, you're right, Ginger. And first of all, let me apologize for my informality today. But I actually got a day off. That's because as you and Matt and I were just discussing, we got to do this again all over again on Saturday. And the last few weeks, this is what we've been living and breathing. I mean, especially me heading over the Space Center almost every day because this is such a big deal, as you know. Yesterday was I mean, it was disappointing, but it was a great day, and and the NASA administrator Jim Bridenstine, I know he's got to say this that it went well, and we're very happy and we're very pleased and all this, but he did make a really valid point. He said this was the first wet dress rehearsal that we've done. Right, a dry dress rehearsal is not put fuel in the giant candle, but they did that yesterday, and then they went right down to 16 minutes, and they went through everything that they're supposed to do. That not a lot happens in that. Well, I shouldn't say not a lot happens in that last 15 minutes, but it's the prep in all of those other minutes before that really gets you down to that last minute. Everything's got to be perfect, and I think one of the most impressive things is, remember when we covered all those space shuttle launches and landings, like Matt and I, on in 2011, standing next to each other on the shuttle landing facility when Atlantis came home for the last time. The space shuttle was so complicated that anytime they try and get it off the ground, weather was always a big deal, but just the mechanics and the condition of the two SRBs, the external tank, and in particular, the orbiter itself, there was always a chance that something would go wrong on that, preventing a launch, and it often did. I mean, there were so many, shuttle launches that I was out there for days where a sensor would trip, a valve would trip, and it just shut the whole thing down. They were working issues. I want to say almost. It felt like, I don't want to say almost every, but maybe many, many launches that we covered. Every single time it felt like they would be working some sort of issue throughout the day that was causing a problem, that if it were that minute to launch or that second to launch, it wouldn't go up because of that issue. We didn't have one issue yesterday on the
Except
Falcon.
weather. Except weather. That
Yeah.
was it. Weather.
Yeah, there was
Weather
that
the issue.
one little issue.
A big one. But in,
Yeah.
in terms of the health of the rocket, the engineering, I mean, it was sound. It was perfect. There was not one mechanical issue that came up at all yesterday. And for a brand new vehicle, I mean, I realize here we are, 3 decades after the space shuttle program, right? But for a brand new vehicle, I mean, in terms of engineering reliability, I mean, it performed really, really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear, Eric. We are getting some questions in. We've got one from Facebook, and this is a great one. I think a lot of people who are new here maybe don't have the exact place to watch a launch. So I know you've covered these a ton of times. Usually you get a better seat than most. You get to go to KSC. Where do you think is the best place to see a rocket launch? This is from Mayville.
Um, I'd say there's a lot of places, Matt, Ginger, and Mayville. And I should say this, that we are, look, it is a privilege that we get to be out there at the Kennedy Space Center. And I don't take that lightly. And there's only one reason we're out there, and that is to bring these pictures and these sounds and this video to anyone watching, to any of our viewers, whether it's over the internet, whether it's a phone, tablet, or TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're there. I don't miss that fact that you are sending us there, ultimately asking us to be there. That said, we're the closest that any human can be unshielded to seeing the rocket launch. But there are lots of places around there on the Space Coast that you can get almost that close. I mean, you're not just three or 4 miles away. But even if you're across the Banana River, anywhere in Titusville, there are it's US 1 that runs through Titusville, right? So you could ride up US 1, right along the river. Any place you can stop there. I know there's a lot of condos and private stops there, so you can't easily pull in. But you can go across the street, and you could park. There's a lot of restaurants there. You could park there, and then you could walk across to the Banana River side. As long as you can see a clear view of the water, you can see a great shot of the rocket. There's Spaceview Park in downtown Titusville. That's a mob scene on launch day, but if you can get there early enough, you can get right up to the water. Jetty Park, we've talked about that. That's at Port Canaveral. Great spot too, because you're right up on the water. Some people watch from Cocoa Beach, the Cocoa Beach Pier.
Yeah.
It's a few miles south, but still, you're on the water. You'll see it.
It's a spectacular view. Yeah, Eric, I think the answer we were looking for is clickorlando.com. No, those are all great places to watch. I mean, we've all, I'm glad you mentioned that it is a privilege to be out there. And I've only been to a couple of shuttle launches. And when you feel the earth rumble beneath your feet and you're 3 miles away, I mean,
Uh-oh. We've lost Ginger for a moment. Hopefully we can get her back while she has frozen. But Eric, so one of the questions I'm sorry, Gigi, I don't know, you're kind of coming in and out with your shot. Eric, one of the questions that a lot of us were wondering in the studio yesterday. Okay, so these guys have to sit on the launch pad for 2 or 3 hours. Then they take a 19-hour trip to the space station. I don't want to get too graphic here, but there's no restroom in that capsule. Okay, so how does that happen? And if you could explain that to us as delicately as possible, that'd be great.
Delicately.
It's funny, guys. This has become such a joke, I guess, that someone called into the press briefing that NASA and the astronauts had a few days ago, and joke said they started their question with, hey, so about those bathrooms. Just kidding. I'll move on to the question. Everybody wants to know this, and the astronauts are not talking about it. Every time they're asked about it, their answer is, we'll tell you how it was when we get back. So, I don't know why that is. I guess because it is, such a sensitive subject. My impression, from what I've read, is that it's a system of suction and bags. Kind of like on the space station. It's not pleasant. I don't even know that they get out of their flight suits because the whole point of a flight suit is to diapers. Exactly. Kim. The whole point of a flight suit is to fly in the suit, right, to the space station. So I don't I don't think that there's many options. It's crude and rude and kind of down and dirty.
All right.
What's that?
Well, that makes. I guess that was as good as you could get. Suction and bags. That makes sense.
This is
Ginger, we
why
have
I
you
won't go
back.
to space. Yeah, I know. This is exactly why I won't go to space. I'm shy. I'm bathroom shy. It's like I can't even go at work. So I don't know how. It's like, good grief. I mean, that's not the only reason I can't be an astronaut, but it's up there.
You're a little too
Yeah,
tall.
I don't go to the bathroom at work, Ginger.
I go home. That's why I live close. I drive home.
We're learning a lot about Ginger on this podcast today.
It's not you.
Okay. We're gonna move on. So, Eric, tell me about the astronauts. Okay, obviously, it takes a lot of brains to become an astronaut. It always has. We have the two guys who are trying to go up to space have each married astronauts. So there's a lot of crazy genius mating with other crazy genius. I think it might be a government setup, possibly. So tell us, how difficult is it these days to actually become one of the people who gets to go into space?
So we were at Patrick Air Force Base last week. You saw we brought you a report on the rescue unit that is going to save the astronauts in case there's an abort. So the major who was in charge of bringing together all of the supplies, that's all of the inflatable boats, all of the jet skis, the modified jet skis, all of the emergency equipment, the medical equipment, and strapping it all down so they can pop it out the back of a plane and into the ocean down below, and then the pararescuers would jump out and fly down with it and save the astronauts. He was telling me about his experience with the military and his wife's experience with the military. So again, he's a major. I believe his wife is a high-ranking official, and he said a decade of her life in launch control centers at Vandenberg. I don't know about Kennedy. I mean, they're on the Space Coast now. The point is, she's got a lot of experience. He was telling me about her degrees. I believe she has a rocket science degree, so she's literally a rocket scientist. She applied, and I think he said they called her back, but then it ended right there. I think there were 18,000 qualified applicants, and they took, a dozen?
That is crazy. And a dozen out of 18,000 candidates.
Yeah. I mean, that's beyond being the top of the top. That is some other astronomical level that we can't even fathom.
Yeah.
Astronomical, exactly. And the other thing he said is that NASA has raised the qualifications. So, from my understanding, I can't tell you exactly what they were. If you needed a bachelor's degree of science versus a master's degree, but they have now upped the level of the degree that you need, and it has to be in some sort of STEM category, making it now shrinking the pool because they just got bombarded from people. And again, NASA's trying to think out of the box. When it comes to our astronaut corps, making it representative of the United States of America, but also not just going to people who are fighter pilots like these guys are. Now, with that said, I don't want to downplay the value of that because these two gentlemen.
Bacon has a PhD in mechanical engineering, so.
I think Ginger, I think he's got the master's in mechanical engineering, and I think it's his wife who has the PhD.
Don't give him credit for his wife's PhD,
I thought he had a doctorate. I'm sorry.
You're right. I just want to say that when I read it, I think I was more impressed with her because she seemed to have one more degree than he did. But I'm not totally sure about that.
Yeah.
The point is the reason they picked these two guys, and I read somewhere that it was coincidental that Doug Hurley landed Atlantis in 2011, and that he's launching this brand new vehicle. It's not coincidental. It's 100% intentional. They wanted the two people, the two Americans that had the absolute best experience when it comes to testing out new vehicles. not just the best education, but the most experience and the best nerves.
Mm.
So if you notice yesterday, when this was all over, you didn't see anybody getting mad. You didn't see any, I mean, it's not a steering wheel, but it's a panel, but nobody was banging on the control. And said, I wanted to go. I mean, it was, Doug Hurley was a class act.
Yeah.
He's cool, calm, collected. He said, I understand. And that's the kind of person you need. I have long said, Matt, you're talking about the type of people that astronauts are. I've long said that astronauts are special people. They're wired differently. They they can they can process things, handle things, especially in an emergency, in a way that I think most people can't. And the reason you get selected for an astronaut, besides your degrees and besides your intelligence, is your ability to solve problems. And that's how the space program, I think, has gotten so far, that you've had so many people along the way over so many years who have methodically, carefully, and slowly solved problems when problems needed to be solved. I mean, look at the emergency, we had in some of the prior launches, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Apollo 13, right? And and these guys are the epitome of calm under pressure. And they said over and over again, we understand that this is a test flight. This is a demo. We have to check out these systems to make sure that we can do this going forward over and over and over again.
Yeah,
They
and these
understand.
guys they're test pilots. This is what they live for. This is what they live for, encountering new problems and solving it. That's how their brains are wired.
Right, right. And you said it yesterday, Ginger. I mean, between the two of them, they've flown 25 different test aircrafts. I didn't even realize that the military is working on 25 different ones. It's not just 25 times, it's 25 different
Different.
aircraft. And every time you do it, you got to be in the same mindset. You got to get it together. You got to go in. You got to understand the risks. You got to go in the challenges and understand the challenges and be ready to deal with whatever comes your way in a calm, cool, consistent manner. Otherwise, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's also, don't you think it's really important that these two guys have known each other for so long that they can basically finish each other's sentences. And so when there is a problem, there's no time for them to have a conversation. It's almost like a marriage.
Yeah. Again, exactly right, Ginger. Again, that was no accident either. They were in the same astronaut class, selected the same year, the year of 2000. They flown. I don't know if they've flown on the shuttle together. I know they've each flown twice,
Yeah,
but
there were different missions.
yeah, when it comes to problem solving and being able to work with someone, that's another thing that I've always thought. Spending 6 months in space,
Mm.
and someone, how do you not kill them?
Yeah. I agree. I sit next to Ginger for a couple hours a
Oh,
day, and
oh boy, I knew
there
that was
there are
coming.
questions some days. Hey, obviously, Eric, you are enjoying your day off, and I don't want to cut into it too much, but I do have one more question for you, because yesterday, I would say the moment that touched us all was when those astronauts came out to get in the Tesla, and before they did, they saw their family for the last time. Of course, it wasn't actually the last time. We didn't know that at that point, but they gave air hugs. They had a good time. I was curious when you saw that. I don't know if you got to watch it live because you were reporting and stuff, but what did you think about that particular moment?
My wife sent me a text right after, Matt, and she said she was crying. I when you guys were talking about it live, and I was watching it. Uh, recapped a little bit, and I don't know if you could hear it, but I had to stop for a quick second, just to get it together, because it was the most touching
Mm.
of the entire day. You guys know it. I mean, Matt, your girls are still young. I have a 9-year-old boy and 11-year-old boy. Doug's son is 10. Bob's son is 6, and they're all really close. They're all. It's not just that the two of them are best friends. It's that their kids are friends, and their wives are some of the best friends. They do things together, and when times get tough, the ladies lean on each other.
Mm.
The families come together, and I don't know that we've seen in past launches that connection with the family. I mean, the astronauts would walk out of that same building, the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout building, all very quickly, and then kind of quickly jump into the Astrovan. I don't know that this was set up intentionally to where they could pause a little bit and kind of connect with the families. And I don't know that the families have ever been front and center like that. But just by the nature of there only being two astronauts, just by the nature of them, having, I guess, high-profile wives, the second you saw that picture, you knew immediately who they were, especially with their two little boys.
Yeah.
There was no confusion. These were the wives, and these were the little boys of those astronauts. And you knew, being a dad, Matt, all you wanted to do was reach over and give them all a hug.
Yeah.
And you couldn't. And then what really got me, we talked a little about this yesterday too. What the astronauts had said is, it's going to be tougher for the wives to watch this than it will be for us to go up in this. And not, it'd be tough for anybody, right? Your loved ones going off to space on a new vehicle. But they know the risks to a T. They know exactly what's about to happen. They know exactly what's it going to feel like. And they know exactly how risky or not risky. My personal opinion is this is the least riskiest space mission that we have flown with humans on board, I think, in 11 years because of the abort system. Anyway, different conversation. But the point is, they're watching and they know exactly what's about to happen. And, sometimes it's better not to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I live my life. That's how I live.
Head in the sand. Don't pay attention to the bad stuff.
Yeah. Just recounting that and seeing the images once again, it just made me tear up because it is really special. And, it not just an air hug, but one of the dads was giving an air bear hug. And you could tell he's like, I'm squeezing this air so hard. I wish it were you. So it was a nice moment.
Yeah. It really was. We in the studio, there were a lot of people in there when that happened, and every single one that I looked at had tears in their eyes. So it was a cool moment. I don't know if they're going to have that moment again on Saturday, but I know we all get to work on that Saturday. So Eric Von Anken, you rest up, baby boy. You enjoy that hammock and the family. Hey, can you show us? Don't you have a nice lake view back there? I want to see that. Turn that camera.
I can
Oh,
move
okay.
Yeah. Oh, you're
We'll
living
be
the
over.
life out there.
We'll be over shortly.
Get that grill fired up, buddy.
This is not what I was doing yesterday from about 5 a.m. on.
No.
That is very true.
So, yes, trying to enjoy some quiet time. You saw my son was just here. And it was great. The greatest part about the launch is that I got to tell him a lot of these stories, and I got to see the wonder in his eye.
Oh,
Yeah. Very
stop
cool.
it.
It's the best part about all of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's fantastic.
That
Oh, I'm so glad you made time for us today. Seriously, I mean that because we all worked long and hard yesterday, but you were out there in the thick of it. So for you to give part of your day off, you could have just said, beat it, nerds, find somebody else. I appreciate you spending this time with us. You're delightful, and I love talking to you every time.
You guys, you're so kind to even say that. I'm honored that you thought of me. Like I said, I'm certainly happy to spend my time with you guys. And you all worked hard yesterday, and we're going to do it again on Saturday, and I can't wait.
That's right.
Yeah.
It'll be good times. We'll re-rack it, and we'll be ready on Saturday at 3:22 p.m. Eric Von Anken, Ginger Gadsden. My name's Matt Austin. Thank you so much for watching another edition of Florida's Fourth Estate. We'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.